soybeans. Clear to the ground. Well, not quite to the ground. About 2 inches off the ground. I'll show you how combine cuts it and separates if I can get it here, these from the field. So when the combine's running, these knives right here, which are quite sharp, are moving back and forth a stroke of probably that far, and when a stalk, if I can find one, goes in there, it gets cut by the action between these fingers and this knife section. And this reel is always moving like that. So as soon as they get cut off, they're knocked into the auger. And this auger has got fingers that also grab it, and this flighting pulls it to the center where these fingers shove it into the feeder house, which is right there. This head is what they call a flexing head. Underneath, let's see if I can show you, behind every one of these long pieces of metal is a hydraulic cylinder. You see it right there, and it's got hydraulic fluid with pressure on it, which helps the head flex and follow the contours of the ground. Oh. I think they have like 4 to 6 inches of flex in them, but the head will go like this if needed too. And on the ends, get it opened up. There's a lot of electronics. And there's another cylinder. Here's a better view of the cylinder. Right here. It's just a little cylinder with probably 2 inches of travel, maybe 3. But it makes a big difference out here on the end. Right here is an electronic sensor, pointometer, and it reads the pressure. There's a rod that runs the length of the head right here, and there's a whole bunch of them on every one of these long pieces of metal, and it's set to have, call it that much flex to it, and it's got an algorithm that tells it lift the head up a little bit, tilt it this way a little bit, vice versa. There's one right here, and there's one on the other side of the head. So through the help of computers, it tells it to lift it not only, let's say, up and down, but it also tilts right here in the center. Underneath here is a hydraulic cylinder, if I can get it held up, with another pointometer on it, telling it to rotate like this, or up and down. Alright, we're standing on top of the feeder house, and inside the feeder house there's a chain, you can see right there, with a bunch of these slats on it. This whole width. You can see right there too. The crop, in this case is beans, is coming in at the bottom and going that way. It hits a accelerator, which will be our next stop. So right behind the feeder house, where the grain's coming up, it hits this accelerator and it throws it back into the rotor. Get you up in there a little bit better. The rotor has got some flighting on it, like an auger does on the grain head, and it pulls it through the machine. So right behind the feeder house now is right there in front of the tires. The accelerator throws the grain in towards the rotor, about where my flashlight's pointing. And the grain is being pushed that way, towards the back of the machine. But on the inside of this concave, which moves up and down by an electric motor, it can either get closer or farther away from that rotor. The rotor is stationary. It doesn't move, but it just spins. This rotor can get closer or farther away, like that, by the way of that electric motor, depending on the crop you're running. Soybeans are small, and the pods are small, so we've got it set really tight right now. And on the inside of this rotor, there are elements with grooves cut in, just chunks of metal. You can see one right there. And they rub the crop against these round bars, which opens them pods and lets the grain fall down onto these augers, which moves it back to the chaffer. So as the grain's moving from front to back, that rotor's spinning at anywhere from 300 to 1200 revolutions a minute, depending on the grain you're harvesting. And meanwhile, grain in pods or husks or whatever you're combining is falling out of these round bars, hitting these augers and moving back towards the chaffer. Okay, so we're at the back of the combine, looking towards the front. Up on the left of your screen is where we just came from. There's the augers that you saw earlier. Now, when the grain drops off them augers and drops out of the out of the rotor, it is partially blown, and by the movement of this whole from left to right table, it moves about that much constantly, shaking the grain towards the back of the machine. Now this is a chaffer. It's got fingers on it that are adjustable. You can adjust them up so they stand up more, or adjust them down so there's not so much of a gap. So as it's shaking the material, grain, beans, corn, bits of stem, pods, some of the stuff's falling down in, and when it falls down through here, it can go one of two directions. It can go back and get dumped back into the rotor, or it can go to the sieve just down here below there's another table, and it's moving too. See it? With smaller fingers on it, and it's a little tighter. If the grain makes it down into there, it's going to the grain tank. It's already cleaned. There's not pods, it's mostly beans or corn or whatever you're harvesting. During this whole operation, there's air being blown from front towards back, helping to separate the heavier grain, corn or beans, from the chaff. We call chaff bits of stem, leaves. It's all being blown out. And this fan is also adjustable. We'll come right back to here. I'll show you the fan. I have to apologize, it's a little windy and it's raining. But this is the fan right here. And it is funneling air underneath all that stuff and blowing up. And with a combination of air and movement and the chaffer and the sieve, the grain is being separated. So if the grain makes it through the chaffer, it's also going to have pieces like this. This is a great example, actually. This fell through the rotor, but it still has the beans in it. You can tell because it's not split open. So this was hanging here, probably getting ready to fall or would fall. It could either go one of two places. Through the sieve into the grain tank, which this would never make it into the grain tank, or it can go back to get dumped on the rotor. Take you around there. So we're standing outside the machine now, and this is underneath the chaffer and the sieve are sitting right here, and this is underneath, and there's an auger. Here's another good example of what's in here. Auger that brings it over, and these chain and paddles bring it up. And the chain and paddles dump it right here. There's another auger that dumps it right on top of the rotor, so it can be rethreshed again to help separate pods from the grain. Since we're standing out here, we'll talk about after it goes through the last shaker, last sieve, all that clean grain falls down into another auger, which is right here. We're at the very bottom of the machine. So when it reaches this point, it is going to the grain tank. It's 99% grain. Same deal. As you can tell when I open that one up, mostly beans. Auger, another chain and paddles, and it goes clear up to the grain bin. We'll go up there in a minute. Alright, so we're back in the back. We've talked about the grain falling through the chaffer to the sieve, going to the tank. Now the sticks and the stems that don't fall through what we've harvested is coming out back here. Now, this is all dust because I just got done running. So all that material that doesn't have any grain in it is coming towards the camera, and this is spinning, and it throws it out and drops it down to where I'm standing. Now normally, and I'll show this, but this is rotated down. There's a couple options that can be right here. This is just a standard chaff spreader. Most combines have choppers on them, which takes this chaff and stuff that doesn't have any pods or doesn't have any beans in it and chops it up in little pieces. But our combine just has a standard chaff spreader on it, and these are rotating that way and that way, and they're throwing and spreading out the chaff behind the combine in a nice even pattern. This has already been harvested where I'm standing, and this is what happens when it goes through the rotor. See, the pods are still on there on most of it, but they're all empty. That's how gentle of an action it is, removing the grain from the stem or stalk, just like that. So we're standing on top of the motor, on top of the combine. The clean grain comes up that chain and paddles and gets dumped into that auger, and the auger brings it out and dumps it into the bin. And as the bin fills up, usually a foot or so above the cab there's a little sensor right there that the grain will slide over and tell the operator the bin's full. So when the bin's full, this auger right here will swing out and the operator can turn it on and dump it into a truck or a wagon or whatever. So, I hope you liked my video on how our combine works. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer them. If you liked what you saw, hit the thumbs up or subscribe to my channel, Ziggy Farms.